Welcome to the Conscious Dominance Podcast, where Andrew and Eric, two dominant men in dom sub relationships, discuss how we approach our dominant roles from a conscious and loving place, and what we learn about ourselves through the deep intimacy that these power exchange dynamics make possible. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hello, Andrew. Hello, Andrew. Hello.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
It's good to be here. The commitment to being here, again, mention it every week, but love being here. Love the commitment. Love the showing up. Love the accountability and the public discussion of this. And today was thinking about, and it's something very alive for me that I'm going to sort of put a frame around a little bit here. When you're in a relationship with someone else, it is not a relationship with another person. Ultimately, it is that person is there to provoke us to see ourselves. Ultimately, we are in relationship. I am in relationship with myself when I'm in relationship with another. Every single person I'm in a relationship with brings up stuff for me to see with me. And the evolution of me with me and holding me with me is what it is to be like a human. We are not isolated individuals. We are social individuals. I'm a social individual. I come in as a baby, constructed a relationship with my mother. The mother-child relationship shapes the relationship for the rest of our life. How healthy that is, not healthy that is. All of those constructs that is that relationship plays out the rest of our life. And we have to bring awareness and consciousness to that relationship so that we can then bring conscious choice to the rest of our life. So we're not habituated in these intimate relationships. I have found that the very same elements of the way I was raised, I keep living and repeating. I'm not the only one that experiences this. This is, you read any sort of child therapy, any therapy, this is the great contribution, I think, of the West to spiritual tradition is therapy. That we have brought out this notion that how we were raised as children affects us. My experience of what I have experienced, because my relationship with my mother created a situation where, like any son-mother issues, there were issues that were not necessarily of the healthiest notion. And out of that, I have created a pattern with my relationship that is anxious and avoidant and these certain sort of stereotypical things. And no matter how much I'm dominant or I'm in my masculine mode, if I'm not addressing my tendency that I fall back to when I get triggered, I'm never going to be in masculine dominant polarity where the woman will be able to receive me in my fullness. There's always going to be some sort of like grit in the mill, so to speak, like something off. There's always going to be this part of me that's proving or defending or needing or explaining. And we don't even know, like, why does it come off? Your rational mind, everything's good to go. And you're looking for, and yet when I get triggered or I get upset, there's this like default back to this spot that, unless it's addressed, continues to bring up these juvenile issues. They feel so juvenile. And I'm embarrassed by them. I'm embarrassed to feel what I feel inside of me. I was with Rachel this morning and I was discussing this and talking to her about this. And we were talking about how much, and for the first time, I was really able to see how much of our life she has really been the one that has been providing the structure for us. And if I was to have that be realized prior to me doing my work, I would have been resistant to hear that. And I would have provoked that same little inner child, inner little boy, and I couldn't hear it and I couldn't address it. And because I couldn't hear it, I can't address it. It's like we can't improve habits unless we recognize that we have the habit or don't have the habit. Like you have to see the thing to improve the thing. You can't just improve something that you don't admit that you have or you don't recognize where you are in it. This, you go to the gym, it's easy to see that you're out of shape and you improve or you lose weight and improve. But a lot of these psychological issues or things in relationship, there's not necessarily something that you see that you have to improve. It's an energy, a feeling that you have to improve, that I have to improve. And that energy that's inside of us is best represented by our emotions. And when our emotions are charged, or we're in anxiety, or we're in this place of proving and explaining and defending, that means that there's something underneath and the foundational thing that the woman is provoking in us. It's not about her. It's about me. 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 It's not about her. And if I do my fucking work, the work being not looking to her to solve me, to solve SAL, bomb me, to provide the solace for me. The commitment that I've had with Rachel, and this is where it's conscious dominance, is when I'm flailing, she doesn't come in and make me feel better. She just witnesses it. And so I can be going through my motions and she's not going to come in and save the day. She's not going to make it worse, but she's not going to come in and touch me or make love to me when I'm in that energy, or fuck me or do something that I might want. Like she literally, she's a submissive. She's stuff. She's waiting for me to be in the right energy. And if I come after her with my heart closed in a proving needy energy, she's going to repel that. She's not going to go along. That's like conscious submission in a way. And this is conscious dominance. This is the relationship. And sometimes it looks like it's off. It doesn't always look like dom sub, but it still is, even in its void, even in its absence. It's almost like when you're going through a fast or you're consciously doing something, saying, I'm going to abstain from something for the elevation of this. There's sometimes you recognize the energies are off. You can say, I'm choosing to proceed in this energy that's off to do my work and not to make it easy for myself. And I think this is something that I've coined with Rachel called DSRX, goes along with the retrograde energy from astrology, but it's this idea that there are sometimes we have to go backwards to move forwards. And there are these periods that feel like we're going backwards, but we really are going forwards, and it's really doing the real work, the deep work on ourselves. So that, and a lot of that deep work is literally from when we were little, that we have to address and do this kind of like inner work. And it sucks. It's hard because you have to re-feel a lot of things to heal those things. I don't even know. I felt like I had a lot to say there that I was just feeling really an impulse to go run with. I would love to see how that's landing with you.
It brings up so many fairly recent memories for me, because I've just been on the same exact path just a little bit before you have gotten here. But man, so much of what you said, issues from my mother, and my mother was different than yours, but anyway, we get challenged as little boys to have to act a certain way in order to receive love and affection from our primary female caregiver.
Yeah.
We're learning the behaviors that we will continue to repeat, but it's not just the behaviors. And this is the thing that we have to make sure that we understand, because you made a really good point. I'm going to loop through something here. You made a really good point about how you can't know this, you can't work on this until you can see it. And that's why we can only be responsible to the level of our awareness. And dominance is responsibility. It's one of the pure hallmarks of what it means to be dominant, is to be responsible. But to be responsible, we have to be aware of what the hell it is we're being responsible for. And when we have these patterns that we built when we were young, they become these belief systems. They become our ego. This is what our ego is built out of. It's the foundation blocks, the concrete that's getting poured underneath our psyche and our future persona, the false self that we're going to work to continue to maintain. These things aren't just things that happened to us as little boys or ways that we learned how to behave as little boys. They are the foundations of everything that we believe that we are. Like, not good enough, not worthy. Because we make meaning out of these things. They don't just happen. We decide what they mean when we're young.
Yeah.
And then it's out of that meaning that we have made for ourselves at that very young age, when our brains are in a very developmental state and we are trying to sort out who we are and what our place in the world is, which we learn by learning what our place is in the family unit. So we build this belief system of who we are, what we are, and it's a very limited and false sense of identity that we create for ourselves. These are the limitations of the ego. They're the limitations of our human existence. And then we grow up and we are constantly living in this attempt to keep things the same as they've always been. This is the Virginia Satir quote that I won't nail perfectly, but that the greatest drive of humanity is to remain familiar, to keep things the same. And so then we learn these ways of relating to our mother, to females in general, and then we grow up, we get older, we become men, and now we're repeating these patterns in these adult relationships, and we're going, why isn't this working? Well, it's not working because we're operating from the level of a 4-year-old in a lot of cases, until we've gone inside and done this work. And it is painful because we have to go back and challenge the very things that we believe are our identities. How much more confronting could it be than realizing everything I thought I was, I'm not? But on the other side of it is the truth. If you can get to the truth, which I think everyone has the capacity to, the truth that you are actually a limitless, infinite being who's capable of anything, when we can let go of these limitations that we've accepted as our identities.
Truth. Well said. And what you were speaking about with the mother wound, as they say, I think a lot of it, no matter what, no matter how awesome your mom is, no matter how well met your mom is, and in some ways, the better the mom, the more the problem. Like, the problem is the fact that you have to leave her. Like, you have to leave the energy, the safety of the feminine, the safety of the mother context.
And you have to leave your own identity of who you thought you were because of that.
Exactly. And you have to rupture that. And that is like leaving, in the Bible, it's leaving Eden. It is a rite of passage. In traditional societies, there was a rite of passage. They literally yanked the boys out from their mother and they got to go and be a man. We don't have that right now. We don't have the man to be with to do that. So we have to do that for ourselves. And a lot of the ways that I have been presented of what it is to be a man, and you too, we all have, is perceived as negative. And so we have to sift through and see what are the parts that are positive, what are the parts that are negative. And it's still hard for us to not please the feminine. And I've been seeing the degree to which I am here trying to please my woman, trying to prove to her, trying to be like, is that right? Did I do that right? Did I do that? And even in my dominance or in my leadership, I'm still looking for approval. I'm still leery of nipping that. And I recognize it because I have a daughter and I have no problem nipping her. She's 15, no problem. And I'm like, why do I have no problem nipping her? Nipping me like I could just cut her, like I don't walk away being like, oh, she's sad because I said no. Like and it's easy for me to say no to her. And yet sometimes with Rachel, when I'm putting a box or confinement, I'm find myself it's sometimes in some subjects really easy, but then there's other subjects, and it seems to be subject by subject. I have a very hard time putting the kibosh or bringing the form to it or providing leadership in that area. And I love this practice because this practice that you and I are here, it is a opportunity to be like, oh, it's going like you literally are getting a tour. I'm getting a tour of my consciousness and my conscious development. It's almost, oh, these are the areas of my life where I feel confident and I'm feeling really strong in. And then these are the areas that I don't feel confidence, that I have a trigger around or some wound or something, because I'll get immediate feedback from the way that my energy as I approach or lead her in these certain areas. And if I'm if she confronts me and I fall, either close my heart or fall down emotionally into another range, then I know that there's something else there that's an issue. And it's crazy how much like what we see is not what's important. It's the energy within which we do it. That's the true dominance. It's all about the energy. Another way, we call it charisma, the confidence, the riz, the whatever all that stuff is, but it needs to be grounded. It needs to be, and you'll know whether or not it's grounded when shit's hitting the fan. How well do you do? When there's a bad, troubling, difficult, challenging time, can you hold the grounding? And she will reflect back to you. And it's literally her job to stress test you all the time. If you have a good woman who's very much in her feminine, you're going to get shit tested all the time. She'll literally see it and she'll poke at it. And that's actually the right thing for her to be doing. And if you're in this agreed upon dynamic and you're of the right energy, you put her in her place. She wants to be put in her place, but you got to do it from the right energy, which means an open heart and from a place of confidence, and not from a proving like I need to control her, she needs to obey so I feel better kind of energy.
Yeah, the thing that I think I realized, well, I know I realized at one point, this was probably, I'm going to say about 3 years ago, I realized how much I was in that kind of pleasing energy, how much I was in that really deeply needy, like I needed her to be happy, I needed her to be pleased, I needed her to be okay with me, it was all about like how I felt. And I remember it clicking for me at one point when I realized, wait a second, I am constantly trying to please her. I'm always tuned into how she's feeling. I'm adjusting my way of acting and being to how she is, like what I think that she wants. I'm trying to give her everything that she wants. And I went, wait a second. She's wearing the collar, but I'm the one acting like the submissive here.
Mm-hmm.
She calls herself a sub, but I'm the one who's acting like one. Mm-hmm. She's in charge of everything. She's in how she feels about it, how she feels about the day, how her emotions are. All of that is actually in control of this entire relationship, not me, not my leadership, not my vision or my foresight. Her emotions are in charge.
Yeah. It's like she gets to be allowed to have her emotions and her reactivity, and you hold tight. And the degree to which that affects you is the degree to which you're in your dominance or not. I'm in my dominance when I can receive that, as you say, and be untriggerable and be in this space and hold the line. When I fold or if I go along with, then all of a sudden she's the one leading. And it can be subtle at times. It could be something where she's like, oh, I don't want to do that. And you're like, oh, it's okay. We don't have to do it like that. And you think you're being nice or you're trying to please. But over time, it chisels away and chisels away. And this is where and where I need you hold. And there are certain parts of our life where we can hold and we hold. And there's other parts where we are more vulnerable to that. And it's like a house. You see, and you're testing the house to see where is it strong and where is it not strong.
So I want to take off on that for a second here because you make a really good point that I think a lot of guys, myself included in the past, really struggle with, which is, do we force our way through or hold on to what it is that we're saying that we want when she's saying, I don't feel like it, I don't want to, doesn't feel good to me right now? Or do we push through, or do we back off in those times and in those moments? How do we handle ourselves? This is why I believe we have to be connected to something greater than ourselves.
Yes. Otherwise, it's
Because
just her. Yeah, exactly. Go
we
ahead.
have to know, is this thing that I am leading her through and that I'm asking her to do, or maybe commanding her to do, is it necessary? Is it aligned with her values? Is it in truth? If it is, then I may need to push her through it even if she doesn't want to, because
Mhm.
there's a purpose for it. There's a reason. But if she's feeling a lot of hesitation, if my heart is open, it's not like I'm not going to notice that. It's not like I'm not going to feel the fact that she's resistant, right? You know that. And this is why guys struggle with women putting up resistance to their leadership, because you feel it. She's not just following you mindlessly. So
This is why.
this is where we have to be connected to something beyond ourselves, because we have to be able to hear her and have our heart open enough to say, does she have a point about why she doesn't want to go through with this? Is there something about this that isn't right? Is there something about what I'm asking of her that is actually just me being needy? Is there some reason why I need to slow down and say, you know, what I am asking of you here, or the thing that I'm asking you to do or commanding you to do, is important and you are going to do it. But I'm going to be patient with you because I want to make sure that it's done in a way that feels good to you. So you can back off without just giving in or folding. You can slow down a little bit, be patient, come to her level, meet her where she's at, almost like you would with a little kid. Get down on one knee right next to her and say, let's talk about what's going on here. What do you need for this to feel good for you? And if we can do that and stay open to her, we can see where we might have something we need to see for ourselves, but we can also see where she has these blocks, these energetic blocks inside of her, and we can help her work through those as a part of our leadership of her. This isn't like just trying to get past the resistance. It's a part of leadership, of leading her into a better experience of life by helping her let go of these blocks or resistances so that she can live free of them and then follow more and more easily.
Well said. Well said. Yes, I think the episodes where we talked about anger and we talked about trigger, to me, I have learned more from me being curious about my trigger and my anger than I've learned about anything in my life. It's when I could sit with myself and be kind to myself, and I can ask myself, what's wrong, Eric? Why are you so angry? Why are you so triggered? And then there's a surface thing, and then I can sit with it more and then go back down and go back down and keep going and get the context of what that pain is. Ultimately, if you go back far enough, I have found for me, there's some part of me that I don't like. And it's often as simple as feeling weak, as simple as feeling vulnerable, as simple as feeling uh, like I'm unworthy or I'm inadequate or unworthy of love. or I'm inadequate, or I don't belong. There's these core sort of wounds that I've you come back down to. And as there's a book about upper limit, and I forget the name of it right now at the top of my. I can reference this again, but it'll come to me as I'm speaking of it. But he talks about in this book about how that we go through, we have an upper limit, and when we hit the upper limit, we hit our core wounds. And in order to go past the upper limit, there we have to confront these core wounds. And these upper limits can come in money, they can come in relationships, they can come in any number of. The Big Leap is the name of the book. And the upper limit, and I think it's Gay Hendricks.
Gay Hendricks,
anyway,
yep. It's right on my shelf right there.
Yeah. And so but that book has been really helpful because I found that and he talks about these 4 different like issues. And one of them for me is that you feel like you're like fundamentally flawed is the one that I have had to deal with. And often religious people, like no matter what, so I have found that I'm fundamentally flawed. That no matter what, there's a fundamental flaw in the ointment. Some wrong. I mean, the whole making of Christianity is that we come in and we've got this fundamental flaw. And then we have to purify ourselves to get to this place. This is going to be a challenge for us to be in our dominance and to lead our woman if we're constantly coming up against and she feels that I have this fundamental flaw, that I have this fundamental part of me that's like, I can't do it. Imagine a captain of a ship and there's a storm going and he's sitting back and you're like, fundamental flaw. And they're like, yeah, so what, dude? It's a fucking storm. We need your leadership right now. We don't care about your fundamental flaw. You got to fucking lead us where we need to go.
Yeah.
That's your woman. I need to show up in a space and lead her. I'm not there to bring my fundamental flaw to her, but I need to bring it to me. I need to be able to sit with myself, and I need to be compassionate with myself that this relationship is that I'm not going to come in and be like, oh, I'm the man, I fucking have it all together, and I'm not going to have to confront anything. And I think this is why that book is so helpful. It shows you that you could go along really successful, and then you're going to hit a point, and you're going to have to go backwards down and wrestle with these parts of ourselves that we have to address. And this journey for myself has been one of really being able to sit with myself and bring that, because when you bring consciousness or you take accountability, as you've said and as we've said, you literally are then confronted with a lot more stuff that I have to work on, that we have to work on. Your unconsciousness is great because you don't have to deal with your shit. But as soon as you bring consciousness to yourself, you have to deal with your shit, and you can't blame anyone else for it anymore. And that's actually progress. But it looks to other people and to yourself as you've gone backwards. And
like I said a little bit ago, we can only be held responsible to the level of our awareness. But then once we're aware of it, now we are responsible for stepping forward. And if we don't, now we've consciously chosen to stay in our powerlessness, to stay in our weakness, to stay in our little boy energy, to stay in our defensiveness. Once we've become aware of what that fundamental flaw is, which isn't a flaw, it's just a decision that we made at some point in the past that we were something less than infinite and abundant and free. We just got attached to these moments in our life in the past where we felt powerless. And so we decided we were powerless. We felt like we didn't matter. And so we decided that we didn't matter. I don't matter as a person. And we don't know that we're walking through life acting like and trying to defend the fact that I'm worthless, I don't matter, I'm powerless, all these things that we decided. But once we realize it, once we see it, to your point, now you have to choose to do something about it, or now it's just 10 times worse. Now it's not like we don't know that we're doing it. Once we know it, and then we choose not to do anything about it, now we're in chosen powerlessness. And that is not a place that any man wants to be. And it's not a place that is ever going to feel good to a woman, because if we are in somewhere inside of ourselves, if we are empty, if there's a void in us, she cannot surrender into a void. That's why she's always looking for, like I said in a recent episode, where she'll find the weak places and poke, and she'll just poke. She'll poke you right in what feel like the softest heart, like worst places. This is where we have to heal those things that we've adopted as flaws, which actually are not. They're not it's not true about you, but we have to be willing to bring curiosity to it, right? Investigate. Is this actually true? Am I actually powerless? Am I actually worthless? Am I actually unlovable? All these different things that we may believe about ourselves. Is that actually true? And I'll give you a hint. It's not.
Yeah. Yes. Well said. And more than any journey, the journey seems, as you go farther along with this, it does feel like a journey. There is a sitting with things that feel more intense. I have found my experience is that it gets more intense, more challenging, and yet I'm more in control. I'm more aware. I'm more able to not be destroying my life or acting from that place. So the opening of the heart, the opening and leading from that is going to I have found that it's created a space in me that's made me more aware of my shortcomings and more aware of those flaws. And yet my capacity to hold myself in those moments, be compassionate with myself in those moments, be still with myself in those moments, is literally like a meditation. I can then still exude strength. I can still exude confidence in that moment. And that it feels more like a contemplative practice, or more like prayer, or more like I don't need to have my external world look a certain way to feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. And when you could start choosing how you feel, whatever is going on with the external world, that's your superpower. Because there are times when the external world's going to shift or change. And no matter how well you are, no matter how competent I am, a literal storm could come and show up, or there could be an accident or surfing injury or whatever it is. No matter how confident you are or competent you are, shit happens. And it's in those moments, how do we hold ourselves? We not freak out, that we can hold and be compassionate and have that compassionate self-talk that allows for my voice to come through, that's truly a voice of what I would say is love. And it's serving the moment with strength and a holding. And it's not something that's a dissolving or cracking, even though that sometimes is apparent that dissolving might be happening. It's ultimately to serve something that truly is powerful and can hold a moment regardless of whatever's going on in that moment.
This is where the practice of chosen non-reactivity has been such a powerful one for me, and a really helpful one for me, because when we're in unconsciousness, we're just in this constant battle to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves, to continue to prove our ego right. Like, our ego is trying to keep itself right. It wants to make us right and other people wrong. And when we are starting to and trying to come out of that place, out of that reactive place, and into a place of consciousness, of awareness, of strength. We hear this analogy, I'm sure you have before, of as the masculine, we're supposed to be the rock or the oak tree. We might get hit with the storms of her emotions and we bend, but we don't break. And for me, when Dawn would start to rage, or when she would start to cry, or whatever these things were that would trigger me, and I would just be able to notice, okay, there's something going on in here, and just breathe through it, see it, and let it go, and instead pay attention to her. And really just listen and pay attention to what is it that she's feeling? What is it that she's experiencing right now? Don't make it about me, because that's the ego, wants to make it about me. Her feelings are saying something about me. They're feelings that she's having. So can I just be with what she is experiencing instead of making it about myself? And that is a really transformative moment, because we see how much and how quickly we want to turn her experience into something that is actually a problem with me. Like, one of my old patterns was whenever she was upset, I immediately assumed it was my fault. No matter what she was actually upset about, that didn't matter one bit. I assumed it was my fault. It felt like it was my fault, and I would try to defend myself or try to fix it and make it better, even though more often than not, it had nothing to do with me at all.
That is the masculine paradox of, in the conscious dominance paradox, is you're going to take complete responsibility for everything, and yet you're not going to take any of it personally. How the fuck do you do that? That is the paradox. Like, that's the opposites, right? You're going to be like, I'm going to take it all take responsibility, but I'm not going to take it personally. Well, and I'm not going to take go ahead.
Well, here's how you do it. Very simply, is you realize it's actually not about you. You aren't just trying not to take it personally. You're actually realizing that all the things she's feeling, all of her reactivity, all those things that are going on in her actually have nothing to do with you at all. Because even if they're triggered by you or something you did upsets her, she's having inside of her because of some response going on inside of her that's built out of her own ego, her own beliefs, her own inner experiences, her own set of childhood wounds, and the fundamental flaws, as you put it. I think that came from that book, right? She has all of those too, and they aren't about us. They're just her, and they're her having her own experience. So it actually isn't about us at all, and that really helps with not taking it personally. Another thing that helped a lot with that for me was the book, The Four Agreements. If you haven't read that, for anyone listening, watching this, go pick up The Four Agreements. That book lays that out as in such a beautiful and simple way of not taking things personally.
That's one of the four agreements.
Yep.
Yes. I still am dealing with that. I still take things personally. I still make it about me. And I think that thing right there is the fundamental issue, is in every interaction, am I doing this interaction to get something? Am I doing something? Am I giving to get? Am I doing this good thing to get a reaction or to please her? Am I touching her to feel better? Am I wanting her to react in a certain way so that I can feel something or other? Am I showing curiosity to her or leadership to her because I feel off and I want to show her that I'm feeling that this way I'll feel better? The degree to which I have led from an energy that's approving energy or false energy, I feel called out in. And I think a great example of where we can see this really play out is when I've been with children or dogs or animals, they can sniff it right away. Is it approving energy or a needy energy? Horses are like this. Or is this a true energy that's heart open and love? It's the same thing with women. Like, it is not different. The energy, people feel energy. It's energy is energy. And the energy, is it pure? Is it coming from a place of love, from a place of confident humility? Or is it coming from a needy, proving energy? And there's a big difference between the two. And the work to get into the one requires a journey through hell, through humility, through a cracking, a death of the ego. This is the Tower card in the tarot. This is your midlife crisis. This is the rite of passage. There are so many different, this is falling and coming up again. That we, as men, we have to suffer or go through pain or go through some sort of reckoning to come out the other side to see that I am not my ego. I am an energy stream that is way more powerful and way more infinite than anything my little ego could access. But that can only access that superpower when I start getting away from my ego. And people call it God energy or other kind of energy, but you can only get there through this. And you know this, you're nodding your head, you've lived this, you are this. And this journey doesn't just happen one time. It's like you have to go, you get cracked open, and it happens again. And I have found
So many
a
times.
relationship, yeah, the relationships that we're in, it's a practice. It's like being in a monastery or in a religious practice or yoga or martial art. Like, we're confronted with something to wake us up. And this is the way. This is the right way. There's no avoiding it. You don't just get to have all your cake and eat it like you're a fucking king and it's just you're being served all the time and it's just all like roses. That is not reality. Reality is a confrontation with ego constantly.
Yeah. And confrontation with ego is just a confrontation with the pain that caused the development of the ego.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple to confront your ego if you are just willing to go back into your past and look at all of the painful moments that you can remember or that come up for you. If you will just stand there and confront those, you will by nature be confronting ego, because the ego is just built out of those. This is why so many times, how many times do guys have to hit rock bottom before they change or improve their life? How many times do guys have to end up in jail or losing their whole family and like in a hospital with some addiction or overdose or cheating on their spouse and getting busted, like all sorts of these things where everything has to fall apart before they'll look at their pain, because they can't even see that they're operating out of that unconsciousness. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can do this consciously. We can do it intentionally. It's just much harder to do it on purpose than it is to keep running until you hit a fucking brick wall.
Well said.
And
I've been going through it, and I feel like what I'm finding is that the gems, there's gold. This is the alchemy, the inner alchemy. This is where the elemental arts are. This is what it is. The inner alchemy, the goal coming out of this is to see that the ego keeps us from realizing that we are by nature vulnerable and weak and a beginner. And yet, when we can recognize that I'm a beginner and I can recognize that I'm vulnerable and that I'm weak and that I need help and that I'm here, all of a sudden it's like immediate access to help, gold, God, something bigger, something more. The direction is clear. And then that's literally the foundation within which to build. And this is when, like, Jesus says, to go to the kingdom of heaven, you have to be like a child. it's easier for a child to go through that than it is for a man with all of his wealth and all of this stuff. These parables are there because it's true. Like, you can't get to where you want to go. You're going to be confronted. You'll get there and then you won't be satisfied if you haven't done this work. You'll show up and you'll have everything you've ever wanted, and then you're not satisfied. I've experienced that. I've had all the different things, and I sit there and I'm like, oh, I'm not happy. And yet I'm going through some ego confrontation, and I'm sitting with myself in a very challenging place. And I feel way better on the other side of that than I did by just having pleasure or just having money or just having some sort of like fun or some sexy moment. Like, that shit's not nearly as satisfying when it's not done with the right energy. When it's from the right energy, it's massively satisfying. A lot of this is about the energy with which I do it. The dominance, it's not about just the activity, it's about the energy from which it's done. Is the heart open? Is it from love? Is it from consciousness? Or is it from approving energy? Is it from this energy that's needy or just got to go get my fix or that kind of thing? It's such a different experience. And I think it's like you can do and have all the fun and all the whatever the fuck you want to do, but do it from the right energy. Do it from a conscious energy. You'll have a much better time, and it'll last. You won't be on sand. It'll be on the rock.
Well, let's talk about how we get into that right energy. Because I think this is a part of the challenge of unconsciousness. And if a guy's listening to this and he's like, yeah, I'm already, like, I got all that figured out. First of all, he probably hasn't made it 50 minutes into this podcast if he thinks that he's already got it all figured out. But if you think you've got it all figured out, that is evidence that you don't. And,
I know that.
And really, I think the number one approach that to me has helped me see this for myself and to help me see where I am approaching this from the wrong energy, the inverted energy, where I'm actually the one who's in the expression of the feminine, is to look at where am I focusing on what I get first, wanting to get something before I have the energy to give back. If I'm focused on what I'm receiving as the primary thing, and then I'm going to give once I've gotten what I want. That is the definition of the expression of the feminine. That's what we want out of her if we want her in her fullest expression, and that is exactly the opposite of what we need to be. Where we need to be is focusing on what feels good to me to give. Where can I give? How can I provide? How can I lead? How can I see what's right and take her there? And then what I'm going to get back is how she feels about me for having led her in that way. So approaching it from the right energy isn't that we never get what we want. It's that we have to earn it, not take it first. And then I'll lead, then I'll take charge once you are sucking my dick every day, or whatever guys think that they need, which isn't what they really need. It's just what they think that they want.
It's moving from entitlement to meritocracy. It's moving from a place where you just think you just get it because you exist to a place where you are in the right energy and then you get it. And it's so much more valuable to do it the latter way, because the work of going through the energy is the freedom. All of a sudden, then you have this freedom. This is why working with Rachel and Hirosha and the work with that she's helped me with the emotional freedom and this ladder, it's been so powerful for me, because I no longer am a victim of my emotions. I'm no longer sitting in a scale or in a place and just get stuck there, and I'll be there for days. And I start, if there's a pain scale from 0 to 10, I've been thinking about this like emotional scale from 0 to 10. And often these emotions that feel off, that are really bad, we know them obviously, but there's a lot of emotions that are sort of in the muddy middle, and we just tolerate them. But what is it to take them and say, you know what? I don't want to be in that muddy middle. I want to actually take responsibility to bring myself to a different place that's grounded, and from that energy lead, and from that energy be in my dominance, and from that space. Because then I will have access to a higher self. I'll have access to a part of me that's aligning myself from God and not aligning myself from that needy person that I talked about at the beginning, with my childhood wounds and my mommy wounds and my unconscious stuff and my anger and my pain. You see how many people are out there in their rage and their reactivity and they're all this kind of their defensiveness and all this. They're all in their wounds. They're all in their pain. It's like Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body, and everybody's in their pain body and trying to control each other's pain body.
Yep.
We can acknowledge that there's a pain body and we can play in the pain body, but do it with consciousness. Don't be unconscious about it. Don't come and try to control and react from an unconscious space. You're going to have a limited bandwidth with which to approach it. You're not going to be able to access the full potential that's there. But in order for me, for my journey to go through this, there has to be this decomposition. And that decomposition being witnessed by my woman has been that's its own rite of passage. And that is truly a test of the relationship in many ways. It kind of is in those moments, for me, am I not going to some sort of numbing agent? Am I just in the pain? And that's the commitment. That's the pure dominance. Stay away from the drugs. Stay away from the drinking, the porn, the overworking. Stay with the pain to feel it so that you can address it and we can do the alchemy. I can do the alchemy. That's the commitment. That's the discipline. That's the work. And not to be in this treadmill of victimhood. But in order to do that, I have to actually listen to myself to move and address those things and hold myself in those moments.
The thing that I think I wish, if I could get every man to just do one thing, if there was one thing that I could give to every single man, it would be the ability to breathe through discomfort. Because the moment that we go into any avoidance of discomfort in any of those ways, whether it's numbing or reactivity or defensiveness or lashing out in anger or shutting down, or here's a big one, zoning out. If you're ever in the middle of a conversation with someone and you just kind of zone out and you're not really listening to them, there might be a reason why you're zoning out. You very well could be falling into avoidance of whatever they're saying in just a very subtle little means of shutdown. But the ability to hold consciousness and hold presence through that discomfort, to see what's on the other side of it, would change a man's life. And it would give his woman, the ability to see him actually being there rather than being in his pain body, in his defensiveness. Because everybody has pain. It's just a matter of, are we avoiding it or are we able to be with it?
Yeah.
That's
it. Yeah, exactly. That's it. And that with it, I hold it for myself. I'm not looking to her to hold it. I'm not looking for anyone else to hold it. I have to learn how to hold that and hold myself. And that's the reparenting.
Yeah. And also leaning on your support structures outside of her. It's not just holding it for yourself. It's not just, I've got to do it all alone. This is the plight of men a lot of times. We think we have to do it all by ourselves, which it is important that we are strong enough to hold ourselves in those times of high chaos, to be able to be present, to be still, to be calm, to move slowly when chaos is happening around us. That's important. But we don't have to do it all alone. You told a great story quite a few episodes ago about how you were really moved by this. We don't have to go it alone. It's that we don't have to lean on the relationship as the support structure. Because when we're having feelings, when we're having emotions, when we're feeling very emotionally reactive, it's just because we feel out of control in some way. So in order for me to bring myself back to a place of strength, especially when I was really deep in this process for myself, which again, I've been working on this as almost a full-time damn job for myself for years now. And so it does get better. You do get to a point where this reactivity kind of fades away and it's not such a big thing all the time. Like, it gets better. But it only gets better by being able to be present with it. And by being able to hold yourself, but also know when to lean on other people. And this is why, again, we need other men. It's why we need therapists. It's why we need friends. It's why we need support structures outside of the relationship. Because if we're always using the relationship as the support structure, it's going to bear the weight of something that it's not built to bear.
Well said. And I think I think dominance is actually discipline, the same. And the discipline of the day I have found to be really helpful. The discipline of my routines, my commitments. I have found that those truly are like, they become the containers that I create for myself, the container of a workout, the container of my writing, of my rituals, my structure. Those become my own. They just sort of lead me and hold me when I have them. I have these certain practices that I show up to that. And I think that's a creative habit, there's a habit that holds the creativity. There's a habit. Creativity and trigger and emotions are all kind of in the same wild place. And we almost kind of got to think of them similar. Like when you clamp down on our emotions, or I clamp down on my reactivity and I don't leave my heart open, I'm also clamping down on my creativity. And so I have to, if I want to access my creativity and my love and my vitality and my vigor, I have to create a container that can hold all of that, but yet not be ruled by all of that. And I think that's what it is. And I think our desires are in that realm too. A lot of this stuff is not a form that is static, it's alive. And alive forms do need some form that can keep the form going, but can evolve. And that's that biodynamic quality. It's not this rigid form. And so when you say that there are these things that can help us, I was saying my personal disciplines help me. Yes. And this is, we know this, any man that's found the solace of showing up at this time, that becomes, oh my God, okay, that alarm, just showing up to the workout or showing up to the walk or showing up to the conversation, it becomes comforting. And that becomes like something that holds you. You're not looking to the woman to hold you. You are holding you. And the degree, when you're looking constantly, or I'm looking for my woman to please me, that means I'm not providing enough discipline over here that can hold me. And so I say, okay, if I'm really being needy over here, I actually need to go solve it over here by providing more discipline for myself over here.
I think that's a beautiful place to wrap this up. And I really do hope that this conversation was impactful for the guys who have heard it. I know some of these conversations get a little esoteric, but we're talking about things that are more of an art than they are a science. And I know that we have to detach from the rigidity of the structure while also recognizing the value and importance and necessity of structure. And that there's another paradox, but it's just another piece of the truth of what the mystery of all this is. So thank you for sharing your experience and for sharing this last hour with me. I appreciate you a lot.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you, Andrew. Appreciate you being here. And I appreciate anybody listening right now to this. Appreciate and love